Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Drop the Mitts Hockey Podcast, episode 43, and we've got an incredible guest here today. I'm so super excited about this one, especially being a big Bruins fan. Stanley Cup champion, USA Olympian, NHL journeyman, Steven Kampfer. Steven, how you doing, man?
I'm just surprised that you put me at 43. I thought you'd have waited until at least 44 and give me at least my number, right?
I literally was looking at that today, and I thought we were on 43, and I was like, God damn it! Like as soon as I saw that, I'm like, God, fuck. But man, honestly, can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your day. Obviously, I know got a lot going on. It's the off season for you now. How have things been? How's the family doing?
It's good. Again, thanks for having me on. Happy to be here. We just got home a week ago Friday, so uh, a lot of getting stuff done at the house. We haven't been here for 8 months, so whether it's organizing or just seeing old friends that you haven't seen and trying to get our son acclimated with the kids in the neighborhood all over again.
Yeah, man, I can, and again, I think people forget that human aspect of things is like what it means to, pick up and move all the time, and especially during the off season. Where are you guys staying? Are you guys on the East Coast still?
Yeah, so we're down in Hollywood, Florida here. So we have a pretty good community here. We actually just took a walk with one of our neighbors, and they have a daughter that's a couple months younger than Teddy. So um, it's great because we have, I believe, 5 or 6 families, roughly 10 to 12 kids that are all within a year or so of each other. So it's perfect for these kids to grow up with, and all the parents, obviously we all get along, and when we get the kids together, we just kind of let them run around and cause havoc. So it's good to get back. Obviously you miss some things when you're gone, but it's like it's like anything now. Everybody's got these group chats, so you don't feel like you're not included, but it's good to kind of see everybody again and be around them.
As far as like besides like family time, and obviously you're going to be training in the off season, is there any other things you enjoy doing? As far as like, are you a golf guy?
I'm a big golf guy. I was out there earlier today. My wife would probably wish that I wasn't on the golf course as much as I am, but
Yeah.
it is kind of my safe haven. It's the if I'm ever really like overthinking something or stressed out, I just go hit golf balls. We have what is it from something about Mary? The golf or the range where they hit into the water.
Yeah.
So that's
Yep.
like 2 miles away from my house. So and it's still up and
Really?
running. So um, I'll go over there and just hit golf balls just to kind of clear my head, or you
Yeah.
don't have anything else to think about. It's you and a white ball and in a field.
You guys have some beautiful courses down there too. It's like every time I go on vacation down there, I'm always trying to like, convince the fiance to let me bring my clubs. It doesn't usually go over well, but man, like I always love playing down there as much as I can.
It's incredible. With where we live, we have 4 public courses within probably 10 miles, and then within another probably like 15, 20 miles, we probably have another 15 or 20 private courses. So there's courses all over the place down here.
That's beautiful, man. And like I saw some news today. You had posted on your story that you're the new co-GM with player development coach Anthony Perticaro. I hope I'm not butchering his name. I probably will.
Perticaro, yeah,
Yeah.
Anthony, yeah.
In the team
Um,
5 in this SoFlo league, are you going to be playing as well as like being a GM? Like, how does this work? I was just reading up on this, and I'm like, this is insane.
yeah, so it was funny because they kind of made it seem like that we were like done taking over a team, but
I,
um,
I saw that, and you were like, no, like I'm still playing like this.
I got a bunch of texts and calls like instantly that were like, "Are you done?" I'm like, "No, I'm not done." So what had happened was um, a few years ago, I got approached at the gym by a couple guys, and they were like, "Hey, we have this 3-on-3 hockey league. Would you be interested in playing?" And for the first year, I kind of just brushed it off because I was just like, I wait until mid-July to get back on the ice. I'm like, I don't really want to skate. And then these guys kind of kept talking about it, and I was like, all right, like we have a good 12 to 15 guys that we train with. And then they just kept talking about it at the gym. And I'm like, all right, what is this? What's going on here? And then so Brandon Duhame, who just got traded to Colorado or played with Colorado at the end of the playoffs, he was like, hey, I need a guy on my team, or like a guy that can come play for our team. Like, can you play? And I was like, sure. And he's like, no, he's like, I'm asking, like, I need you to like really come play. He's like, it's just me and a couple college kids. He's like, I need another guy. So I was like, yeah, I'll come play. And then fast forward about a year, we had Josh Levo, who had played in the National Hockey League. Alex Galchenyuk had played. Both Sergachev brothers, Sharon Govich, Zadorov, Lomberg. We had started to recruit a bunch of guys that were down here training in the summer and started slowly building this up more and more and more. And the more guys that started coming down, the more that we started skating with over at the Panthers rink, we started generating a little bit of buzz behind it. And at the time, we only had 4 teams. Well, you're playing 3-on-3, you're dressing 6 guys a team, maybe 7 if like you're like, okay, like we want an extra guy. So we were more or less running out of room to expand the league. So then the guys that had created it, Cole Codsey, approached me and Anthony earlier this year and were like, would you guys be interested in becoming like, because Anthony and I were on different teams. They were like, would you guys be interested in co-GMing a team since like Kampfer, you're gone in the off season, or you're gone during the season, Purds is here. Can you guys just help facilitate a team? And we were like, yeah. So we ended up working it out that he and I were going to be GM, players, and coaches together. So, and then 3 days ago we had an expansion draft, and I thought they were going to drop that today too. So, so we had drafted some guys, like we had like kind of like the same thing that Vegas and Seattle did,
That's sick.
where they got to protect 1 or 2 players based on the team, and then we were allowed to select an NHL, college, or AHL player from each team. We're allowed to select one of those, and then one kid that's either in juniors or college right now. So it's kind of like we're drafting almost for the future to kind of create more kids to keep coming down and playing. So that's more or less like what this league is, and it's a lot of fun because play 1 game a week. It kind of keeps the competitive juices going. Along with that, you basically play 4 mini games in 1 session. So like it's 4 10-minute periods, but those 10-minute periods are a game. And you have they have stats, they have, goals, assists, things like that. And we play on a really small rink, almost a 3-on-3 sheet rink, like very small.
Yeah.
But it's just to work with like, a lot of it is like, I'd say 90% of the guys that play in that league work with Purdy on other days and do skill stuff. So it's a perfect time to work on your skills. It's a perfect time to kind of keep, like I said, the competitive juices going, along with having a little bit of, I guess, bragging rights per se of the league. So it's fun, it's something cool. And especially with how well Florida and Tampa have done in the last 5-10 years, hockey is continuously growing. So if we can create these things where we start doing it and these games we're still trying to figure out the timing for games, but if we can start doing them later in the afternoon or nighttime when more kids are starting to get to the rink there in Pompano, the more that they see like, all right, well, those guys play in the NHL, those guys play in the American Hockey League, these guys are college kids, like, oh, they're all down here in Florida. So then it's going to kind of create a little bit more of a buzz for South Florida sports to kind of continue to grow.
Now, you, like, as obviously a puck moving defenseman, that's the kind of game you've always played. Like, what's it like playing on this smaller surface? Like, obviously you just played a full season, this huge ice surface. Like, what is the adjustment like? Like, how long does it usually take you to kind of get used to like the significantly smaller ice surface, and you're playing with like other grown ass men? Like, on this surface.
Yeah, it takes I would say it takes probably like one of those games to get kind of into it, and then after that, it's kind of second nature. But I mean, things happen so fast. Like
Right.
you, literally, like you turn the puck over, it's a 2-on-1 the other way. Like you almost have to have a guy that's strictly playing defense because things can happen so fast. But it's great because it gets kind of that little short area touches, like the quick plays, a lot of give and goes, a lot of touch passes. And then if you can shoot the puck, guys start screening the goalies, and then you get these goalies they're gassed after a little bit because they're going post to post. So then it turns into kind of a free for all from the point there.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Like I said, they do something similar in Boston at Thayer Academy, where you're getting a lot of these guys like Coyle, a lot of these like Hockey East guys, and you watch just how fast plays develop, right? And like it's constant back and forth. So it's cool to see another league, down south especially, kind of incorporating the same thing, and I think that's
Yeah.
awesome, especially for growing the game.
Well, it's huge. I think just this the like you said, just the growing the game part. And honestly, it gives us something to look forward to in the middle of the week. Like you get to the dog days of the summer where it's you're in August and you're skating. It's like all right. Well, hey, we got a meaningful game here tonight. Like it could possibly be for a seeding in playoffs to get a bye, or you could be in the play-in game now. So it kind of keeps that competitive edge, like I said, going.
Yeah, man. I kind of want to get into like this season.
Yeah.
You captain the Tucson Roadrunners, AHL affiliate of the Arizona Coyotes. Obviously we got the terrible news that they're moving obviously to Utah now. Um, can you kind of speak to the misconception, because a lot of people that I've talked to, don't necessarily think Arizona is a hockey market. And you obviously having, the front row, like playing for the team, right? Like, can you kind of speak to what hockey was like in Arizona? Um, do you feel like hockey belongs in Arizona? Like, can you just kind of talk about what it's like over in Arizona as far as the market goes?
Well, I, it's tough because the ink really isn't dry still on this sale. But
Right.
for the fans of Arizona, they are passionate about the sport. They are passionate about having the team there. They're passionate about the players. They're passionate about the Coyotes, everything like that. They were by far engaged. Everybody thinks that it's not because it's any southern market kind of gets there's other things to do. Arizona fans or Tucson fans, they would show up for games. It didn't matter if it
Right.
was on a Tuesday night or a Saturday night, they were there. And your fans are always going to be your fans. It's unfortunate that they lost the team due to what was going on. And I wouldn't say that it's not a hockey market. It is a hockey market, and they've done a really good job of promoting the game. I mean, you look at the junior Coyote program where my head coach this last year, Steve Potvin, he started out in that program um, as like a coach, and then turned into a skills coach with the Coyotes, and then worked his way up into being an assistant coach with Tucson, and then becoming the head coach. So they are building the game the right way. I mean, Michael Grabner still lives out there and runs the U10 or
Yeah.
U12 program. Um, and you look at how well that they did this year. Like their team was going, I think they went to nationals. Like they're good. It's a hockey market. I mean, if all else fails, you got three kids right now that you can say that Arizona created, right? You got Austin Matthews, Matt
Yep.
Nyes, and Josh Stone.
Yep.
All three kids, two of which played a full season, two of which played in the NHL. One's a bona fide, might go down as the best goal scorer ever. Matt
Yeah.
Nyes, I played with him at the Olympics. He's an absolute stud. Then you look at Josh Stone. Josh Stone was born and bred in Arizona, went through the whole Coyotes program, grew up playing that way, moved away, went to Colorado or went to Chicago Steel, came back and played at ASU because he wanted to be home and wanted to build up that program because they were just starting. He wanted to build that program up. That's just the kind of person that he is and that their family is, that he went through all of this to go back home. He could have gone to other schools.
Yeah.
He went back to ASU to build that program. He did. And then you look at what he did at the end of the year. I think he played 9 games. He had 7 points. Like,
He was
I mean,
he was insane.
he'll be in Utah next year without a question. He's a unbelievable hockey player and an even better person. So, um, hockey belonged there. Hockey. I hope that at some point, I hope that they figure it out and they go back.
Yeah.
Just due to the fact that, like, people like going there. I mean, it's no different than, you know, Florida for the longest time. Like when I played here in 2014, 2015, like we missed the playoffs, and the next year we I think we won the Atlantic Division, and the difference of fans when we weren't winning to winning was incredible, because then people started showing up. We started getting full houses because people do care about the sports. But if
Right.
you want to put a team out there, a product out there that's going to win, people are going to come, and that's
Right.
and that's just how it is, especially in warm markets because they have other things to do. But Arizona definitely has built a program up there that could and should be in Arizona for a long time.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, man, because you're definitely not the only person that has said that. I mean, I think like I mentioned earlier, the big misconception, just because they're moving, that does not mean that they're not a hockey market. That does not mean that the fans are not passionate. We had Jordan Schmaltz on. Obviously, he's Nick Schmaltz's brother. Said the same exact thing you did. I mean, they were always fans in there, always passionate. It's tough to see, but getting that your kind of perspective on things, it just it sucks for those fans.
It's awful because they've spent what 20 something years being fans.
Yeah,
They moved from Glendale to ASU, and like they still, I mean, I get it, that's 5,500 fans, but like they still went and watched games. Like
100%.
the people that grew up watching Arizona Coyotes hockey are so loyal, and it's like the Cardinals to them. It's like the Diamondbacks. They are so loyal to their sports, and they want sports to be there. And unfortunately, it shouldn't have been taken away from them. It shouldn't have been moved, but that's the nature of the business. And like I said, hopefully in 5 years or whatever, when they have the opportunity to possibly get a team back, I hope they get an expansion team and then they go back, and I hope that these fans, pick up where they left off.
100%. I agree. I really hope that, they can make it work again. Man, going back, you mentioned guy like Josh Doan. You got to wear the C, one of the older guys on the team, right? Can you speak to the development of some of these younger guys? I mean, it's exciting times for, for Coyotes fans, Utah fans now. Guys like Josh Doan, you mentioned Connor Geeky, Dylan Genther. And then on the back end, guys like Mike Kesserling, who he's from close to us here, and Victor Soderstrom. What was it like watching those guys develop? And did you kind of take that role as like a mentor to them?
Well, that was a lot of it, right? Is you're the older guy. You're still there to contribute, do your job, but a lot of it is, and like I told the guys at the beginning of the year, you know, we had, you know, myself, we had 6, 7 other guys that had been through a lot on that team, that had, 4 of which that had been there for 4 or 5 years. Um, we had a leadership by committee. It wasn't just the guys that wore letters that were leaders. We bred guys to how they should act, how they should, communicate with each other. The work ethic every day of, um, you know, it's no different than any job, right? You go, there's some days you just don't have it, or some days you just don't feel good, but it's putting on the positive mind frame of showing up, doing your job, getting the most out of what you can that day. and being encouraging for your teammates, because you know, especially in the American League, things happen quickly, and you know, you could be playing really well, and somebody else gets a call up, or you could be leading the team in points and somebody else gets a call up. It's understanding the situations that everybody's in, and that's the thing that I can go back to. I think last year when I was in Grand Rapids, I was older, coming back. I played the last 4 years in the National Hockey League before Russia, where I was like, oh, okay, like I can still do this. I can, but I didn't fully appreciate or understand the fact that I was now the older guy that I needed to kind of help mentor these young kids. Where I think I took a little bit of it for granted, of like, okay, like I'm going to be the next guy kind of thing, and that's on me. And that's kind of the one, you know, I'd say regret that I had of that season was not kind of doing what I did this year of you know being encouraging, helping the guys, understanding the situation, because we have guys like you said, Donor, Gunner, Geeks came in at the end there, but if had it not been for the 20-year-old rule, he would have been with us all season. So,
Right.
Kess, Soda, I mean Vlad Kolyachonok, Maxime Zuber.
Yep.
Um, you look at the list goes on and on for guys. I think we led the league in call ups this year. I think there was what,
There
17
was
of us at some
Yeah, there
point
was a
that
ton.
got called up.
Like I said, I was going through the
Um,
list and I was like, do I just name all these guys? Those were just the
yeah,
guys notably as far as like ice time
yeah,
goes that I was looking
and
at.
and and a lot of it was understanding the moment. There's times where if somebody gets hurt, a certain guy's going to get called up, and I kind of took that on my shoulders, along with talking to Steve Poffin and John Slaney, and Zach Sortini, our coaches, of like, when guys get called up, like, let me handle like the guys' moods, because I understand that there's times where guys are going to be in their feelings a little bit, and rightfully so. Like, we've all been there. And you try to build relationships of, hey guys, like, listen, anything that you guys have done or will do, I've been there. I've been in that situation before. I understand the pros and cons of it all. So, um, any questions, like, and I told them, I was like, listen, I was like, all I want to do is be a small part of you guys' career. And I hope that you guys remember, what we went through, because I'm getting towards the end of mine, and I want to have fun, and I want to see you guys all succeed, because at some time or another, you guys are going to have situations where you have to lean back on, and you're going to remember something, and hopefully it's a positive moment. So I more or less just you know led that way. I wanted them to understand that I had an open door. My phone was on. If guys had problems, to call me. And, like, I think the hardest thing for me, um, was I got hurt so early on in the year, where I missed 20 something games real early. So, but kudos to the guys. A lot of them would call me after games, on the way home, or when they were on the road, just to um, kind of see what I like, check in to see if I saw something, or just kind of, more or less, I was just their venting, the soundboard for them, their venting sessions where they could have conversations. And I was really fortunate. I roomed with Dylan Gunther on the road for the first little bit, so I got to kind of get to know him a little bit better, um, and more or less just, um, understand where his head was, because I'll never forget this. There was a time we were in San Jose, and he was just not struggling, because I don't think him struggling ever happened.
Right.
He was forcing plays a little bit too much. And I was just coming back. I just started skating from my leg injury, and I looked at him and I go, "Can I be blunt with you?" And he's like, "Please." And I just looked at him and I go, "What the fuck are you doing?" And honestly, he goes, "What do you mean?" And like, we were fortunate. Like, after the games, they'd send us our clips, and we sat there one night, and we just sat there. We ordered Chipotle, and we were sitting in between the two beds, and I had it up, and I was showing him. I'm just like, I'm like, almost like turned into a coach at the moment. And I just
Right.
looked at him. I was like, just simplify your game. 3 games later, I think he had 5 points in 5 points the next 2 games. Came back off a break, and then had like a hat trick, and he was gone. And then next thing you know, he scored 19 goals. And I sat there, and I'm just like, and he and I kept in touch when he got called up, and I would just look at it, and I just started laughing, and I'm just like, I go, this kid has all the tools. Sometimes you just need that, almost that peer to peer moment of like that harsh reality of
Yeah.
understanding something. And kudos to him for taking it how he did, because I can understand if a kid was like, oh, I didn't do that, or I don't do that. But he took it, and he ran with it. And I mean, you saw what he did the second half of the year, and then
Yeah.
it was incredible. And then, I mean, you look at a kid like, you brought up Josh Doan, and I can't say enough about that kid. He's one of my favorite human beings I've ever seen in my life. Like, he and
Yeah.
I talk pretty much every day, so he's got a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
And I love his dad and his family. So, um, but Donor was the kid that, good or bad, always showed up with a positive attitude. Always showed up very, very happy. Very, all right. What's the day looking like? Here are we going, or where are we going? And you could just tell that he was outgrowing the league, and you could just tell over and over and over just by how he played. And he wanted the puck at certain moments. And then, he and I were on the same power play unit, so it was kind of, he and I would have conversations, and Justin Kirkland along with us, we'd kind of just be like, all right, how are we getting Donor the puck? Because
Yeah.
something's going to happen with this, right? And then he just got to the point where, again, we were in San Jose, and we all went out to dinner after the game, and he walks up to me, and he like whispered in my ear that he was getting called up. And I honestly, I felt like a dad at that moment. I almost started crying because I was so happy for him, because he had earned it. And it wasn't that he deserved it. He earned every
Yeah.
bit of that call up, and he went up there, and then his first game was incredible to watch. And then he just progressively got better and better and better. So, it was awesome to see.
Yeah, and that it's honestly going back to the Dylan Genther thing, like that. It's so encouraging because so many times nowadays you hear these like fucking horror stories about these kids that don't want to learn anything, right? And the fact that you were able to be so blunt and honest with him without him crying and without him like taking it personal, like that really goes to show his type of character, right? That he was able to kind of take that criticism and really use it as motivation, understand what you're saying and apply it to the ice, right? Like just feel so many
And,
times
and he and he
nowadays.
he's such a
Yeah, you're
yeah,
good, man.
he's
Sorry.
such a salt of the earth. He's such a salt of the earth kind of kid too. Like, he's you can tell, like, he's got so much skill, but like, he works his ass off. Like, we get into hotels, and I'm 35. I'm going and laying on a bed, and I'm like, dude, I'm dead. He's like, I'm gonna go down and ride a bike and go for a stretch. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck. All right. Well, I guess I got to do it too. Um, but it's stuff like that. Like, that's the caring. That is the commitment. That is the willingness to want to get better. And I remember before that whole thing, he had gone probably like 5, 6 games without a goal. And I was still on my scooter. I'm sitting there, and I'm doing a workout, and morning skate ended, and I was just getting my workout started, and I hear, like, we had like a shooting gallery out behind like our workout center or workout area. I hear somebody shooting pucks, and I'm just like, who the hell's shooting pucks? Like, everyone's gone. He's
Right.
out there shooting pucks, and I look at him. I go, what are you doing? He goes, well, I haven't scored in 5 games. Like, I gotta hone in my shot right now. And I was like, dude, go home and take a nap. He's like, no. He's like, I'm not leaving until like I hit this like 10 times in a row. And I just sat there and I watched him, and I'm just like, and then he does it, and I was like, hey, I was like, you're gonna get one. If it's not tonight, it's tomorrow. And he's like, yeah, I hope so. I was like, no. I was like, you will. I'm like, you're fine. And but it was like, it was so encouraging to watch a guy like that who was a first round pick, I think he was 11th overall,
Yep.
but just have that care and commitment to want and the willingness to want to get better. Like those two were incredible, and it
Right.
was awesome to see. It was awesome to be a part of, and like I said, it was an honor just to be a small glimpse in those guys' career because they're going to have long careers, and you know what the best part is those two are really good friends. So I hope that they play together for a long time.
I love that, man. And like I said, you hope that they look back on these experiences that they had with you, as they get older and kind of treat the younger guys when they're at that point, the same way. Um, Man, I want to get into more about you and your career. You've had a crazy fucking career all over the place. I mean, you're one of the most unreal journeymen, man. I'm going through all these teams, but starting off, obviously you're from Ann Arbor. You had 4 great years at University of Michigan. Um, Thinking back, man, what was it like playing for such a iconic program? You're even seeing now, in recent years, the amount of talent that they've been pushing through. What did that program do for you and your development? And can you kind of speak to your time spent there?
Yeah, obviously being from Jackson, being 30 minutes away, it was obviously a lifelong dream to kind of go there. And the funny thing is, it actually came down between Michigan and Boston University, were the two schools that
No
I was
way.
really looking at. David Quinn recruited me. I really, really, really wanted to go to BU. I fell in love with the city when I was 14 years old. We went on, like my mom, dad, and I went on a visit there. I fell in love with it. It was before Agnes was fully built. It was like just
Yep.
they had like the ground done, but it wasn't. They were still playing out of the old rink, but they were like by the time you'd get here, you'd be in the new rink. And honestly, like just the cobblestone of Boston, I fell in love with it. And it was it was hard to make that phone call um, when ultimately I chose Michigan because I wanted to wear the winged helmet. I wanted to go to Michigan. My mom had played golf at Michigan, um, and on my 16th birthday was when Red Berenson called me or I guess I went into their office because like they weren't technically allowed to call us, but
Right.
went into the office and they offered me a full ride. And I, being a stubborn kid, I was like, oh, I got to take some time to think about this, knowing full well that I was going to commit to them.
Right.
But I mean, honestly, it was great. I went there as a pudgy little kid. Didn't know how to work out. Didn't know how to train. Didn't know how to eat. And you know what? It took me probably until my sophomore year to really understand, the training aspect, the wanting. Like I just kind of glided on skill. Um, and then I was fortunate. I played with Jack Johnson, Matt Hunwick, um, Kevin Porter, Cagliano.
Yeah.
Guys that had played for or guys that went on to have good careers, and you saw them how hard they worked and how hard they trained, and then you started to really understand that. All right, well now I got to start training. So probably until my junior year, I didn't really um, until train hard, and then I owe a lot of success to obviously Red and Mike Barwis, who was with Rich Rodriguez when he came over when he took over for the football team, and Mike Barwis took over our program. Him and Dan Moses kind of took over our program, and Jim Plotke, and they transformed me into a guy who actually enjoyed working out, enjoyed cardio where I hated it before, but they made it fun. They made it fun for us, and um, so I owe a lot of success to those guys. And then you know, Red was the brutally honest coach with me of I could play bad or I could play good, and he would just give it to me straight. And there was times where I was like, this guy hates me. I'm like, this guy, I don't know how I'm gonna ever win with this guy. Kind of the woes me. But honestly, he taught me how to be a pro. He taught me how to how to walk the walk and talk the talk, I guess. Um, and my junior year, when I got hurt really bad, you know, obviously Mike rehabbed me back from my injury, and then when I got back, I had a really good second half of the year. I think I played 20 games or something like that. Um, Played really well, and at the time I was drafted to Anaheim, and
Mhm.
I wanted to sign in the worst way. I wanted to leave school early. I wanted to be one of those. I guess I wanted to be one of those kids of like leave school early, go play.
Yeah.
But I just felt like my game was there. I really did, and I remember my family advisor at the time was like, "Okay, we can get it done." He's like, "But Red's going to want to have a conversation with you first." And I was like, and that's just how much he respected Red. Was like, he's going to have, you need to talk to him before you make a decision.
Yep.
So I walked into Red's office and I had a conversation with him, and he looked at me and he goes, "You're not ready." And at this time, like, I was like, "Yes, I am." He's like, "No, you're not." He's like, "You're not ready." And I was like, "Why am I not ready?" And he's like, he listed off like, "You're not strong enough. You need to do that. You need to play this way. You need to work. You need to do this way." And just kind of listed off like three or four things to me. And he's like, "I want you to think about that before you make a decision." He's like, "Come back to me in 2 days." He's like, and "We'll sit down. We'll have a conversation again." He's like, "Because listen," he's like, "if you go anywhere right now, you're going to play 1, 2 games. That's it." And I was like, "Okay." He's like, "So let's just wait. Let's have a conversation." So I walked back in and he goes, "Did you think about it?" And I was like, "Yes, I did." He goes, "What's your thoughts?" And I'm like, "Well, I think I do this." And he goes, "Okay." He pulls up tape and he goes, "This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about." And he was showing clips of like Jack Johnson, Matt Hunwick to me playing in the National Hockey League. He goes, "If you come back, I guarantee you, I will make you ready for next. I'll make you ready when you walk out of this place."
Wow.
So I go, "Okay." I was like, "There's the deal." I was like, "You give me your word, I'll give you my word. I'm coming back." So I ended up coming back, and then my senior year was my best year, and he treated me like I was a professional the entire year. It didn't matter what I did. He treated me the exact same throughout the entire year, good, bad, or indifferent. We had conversations every Tuesday. Me, him, and our D coach would sit down. We'd watch video, and it was breaking it down of what I was doing good, what I was doing bad, what I wasn't doing indifferent, and how do we learn from that to build for the next weekend. And between him and Billy Powers, like those two made my senior year unbelievable, and it made that transition to when I got traded from Anaheim to Boston. It made
Yep.
that transition to going to Providence so easy for me that it was actually I was like, I remember getting to Providence and I was like so shell shocked the first practice. I'm like, man, these guys are big, they're strong. Like I was the
Yeah.
biggest guy in college, like because you're a senior, right? And then when I played my first game, I was like, I just remember sitting there leaving the game. And I'm like, oh, I can do this.
Yep.
And it was all because, those two had the time, the patience, and Mike putting in the extra effort with me in the gym to make sure that I was more than ready to go. And it wasn't just getting ready, it was being more than ready to go. So, like I said, without that group of people, I don't know if I would have ever made it.
That's unreal. It makes you really wonder like what could have been, and like obviously you go on and you get moved to Providence. And that kind of goes into my next question. Like I feel like you were kind of the one that kind of paved the way for these like not small but like smaller puck moving defensemen. Obviously it kind of started off with you guys like Torrey Krug, Matt Grizzlick, who also had great careers in Boston. Um, would you say that early on, did you feel like being a smaller, like puck moving defenseman at the point that you got to Providence was a disadvantage? Um, and then what do you feel like specifically about your game that gave you so much success like early on? Because obviously you played for the Bruins the year they won the cup, right? I believe it was 38 games, um,
Yeah.
10 points, five goals, five apples. Like, what about your game do you feel like gave you success early on?
I think I was just fearless at that point. I didn't care what was going to happen. And honestly, you know what? I was very fortunate. I had Bruce Cassidy as our D coach
Yep.
in Providence, and Rob Murray was the head coach. And as hard as Butchie was on me the last couple of years, like he's hard coach, but he demands perfection. The thing is he was as hard. It's easy for me to say, like, he was hard on me then. He was harder on me when I came back to Boston,
Yep.
but he was hard on me then, and he taught me how to play the game the right way. He taught me how being a little bit smaller to use your advantage. Like I mean, I was fast then,
Right.
but like I said, I was just fearless, and I had no, I didn't care. I wouldn't say care. Care is that the wrong word. I knew that if I jumped up in the play, I could get back.
Right.
Was kind of the feeling that I had when I first got there. Was I can make things happen offensively by jumping in, but I could also see the play well enough to make a pass. I felt like that was always kind of my niche, I guess, was I could move the puck really well. Like I could make that first pass um, kind of seamlessly when I was on my game, and kind of get us out of the zone, or on the power play or whatever. But it wasn't like I wasn't going to do anything to razzle dazzle or flashy. Like I was more of like just a quick puck move and then jump up and try to be the fourth guy on offense and just beat their forecheck. And that was kind of where I had my success in the first couple of years
Right.
before I got hurt. At the end of that year, the end of the 2011 year, was where it kind of hit a roadblock there for 3 years. It's easy for me to say now, I'm well past that, but I did hit a roadblock for 3 years there where I couldn't stay healthy because
Right.
again, like you said, I was a smaller defenseman. I was getting hit. I was taking the brunt of big guys playing against third and fourth liners. Like, you're taking big hits.
Right.
And um, you know, I remember I came in my rookie year. I was 185 pounds, and I thought that was big. And you know, and it took me until year 7 before I finally got to the weight where, like, I could actually withstand getting hit. And it just took me a long time. And I had a lot of injuries that kind of sidetracked some, I guess, some development. But it was all part of the learning curve.
Yeah, and man, and going back to this 2011 team, you were a rookie at that point. I'm going down the list of some of these defensemen. Just remembering some of those iconic defensemen. Big Z, Zdeno Chara, Dennis Seidenberg, Johnny Boychuk, Andrew Ferentz, Adam McQuaid. Like, you go down the list, like, playing for that team, being as young as you were. Obviously, that was the cup winning year. Like, what did playing with those guys teach you about being a professional? And what did playing with those guys kind of do for your development, both mentally and both on and off the ice stuff?
Well, it wasn't just them. It was collectively that
Right.
entire group.
Well,
Um,
and that's what I'm saying. Like, even going through the forwards, guys like Sean Thornton, Greg
yeah,
Campbell, that whole team was just Nathan Horton, Milan Lucic
yeah,
at that time, right? Like, you go down the list, like, that team was iconic.
yeah. So I'll start it off this way, and I'll kind of get into what you were just referencing there. So my first year in camp, I was paired with Z through the entire camp. We had Mark Stewart at the time too.
Forgot about
Matt
Mark
Hunwick
Stewart.
was
Yep.
there at the time, and Matt Hunwick was there before he got traded. Um, and I remember that, like, I remember walking into that year, and I was paired with Z in camp, and I played, I believe, 3 games with Z, and I'm like, I remember going, like, looking back, and I'm like, why did they just keep playing me with this guy? Like, they got to get their pairings going. Like, and I just remember looking at the roster, and I'm just like, they got 6 guys, 7 guys plus Quater. I think Quater is the only guy on a two-way at the time. but he had to go through waivers, and he would have been scooped up in a second. And so I just remember like looking at that lineup, and I'm like, this is going to be like, you're going to need 3 injuries before you get in there, but like, just make sure you're ready. And like, you just like seeing how Z prepared, Sides prepared. You know, obviously I knew Matt Hunwick and trained with him all summer. And you watch guys like Gregory Campbell and Sean Thornton, and Nathan Horton. And then you got guys like Patrice, obviously, who's, you know, unbelievable. And then, you know, I was a rookie, and Marshy was, I believe, a second or third year pro, and just kind of how he went about himself, and what kind of role that he had to create for himself or carve out. And, you know, you learned how to more or less pick up like the good tendencies that they had and kind of incorporate them to yourself, whether it's training or everything like that. And then, yeah, I mean, it was funny because we came back for the 2011 thing this year for the centennial year, and there was I believe like 14 or 15 of us that were there. And that's funny because that was we were all sitting there talking about it, and I specifically remember bringing up when we were there. I was like, we had a game against Dallas, and Sides and I started that night, and it gets brought up to me all the time about that game. We had 3 fights in 3 seconds. And I remember, I think I had the fastest shift in like maybe in NHL history. I think I played 1 second, had
I
a
remember
shift
exactly what game
because they
you're
pulled
talking about.
Sides and I off the ice. And right off the opening draw, it was Sean beat the wheels off of somebody. All of a sudden, we get pulled off the ice. Next thing I know is Gregory Campbell's fighting somebody. And then I don't know if it was Quater or Ferentz got in a fight. 3 fights in 3 seconds. And I just remember sitting on the bench, and I looked at Sides, and I'm like, what is going on right now? And he's just like, this is how it is. And I'm like, what do you mean this is how it is? And I want to say it was like maybe my 10th game that I had been there.
Yeah.
And we had that roster that was built so well, because if you wanted to fight us, you had Thornton, Z, Luch, Nathan Horton, Boychuk, Ferentz, McQuaid, Gregory Campbell. What's that? 8 guys, 9 guys that could fight and fought heavies.
I feel like Johnny Boychuk too. Like there was times where he wasn't afraid to like, you know, there were times when he was going, you knew there was really something like
his spot check fight is the best thing. If I ever need like a good pick, I go watch a spot check fight. Like I talked to like Boych and I like we're joking about that when I saw him. I was like, dude, if I ever need a good laugh, I just go watch your spot check fight. But like we could play any way that a team wanted to play. If you wanted to skill us, we could skill you to death. If you wanted to fight us, we could fight. And it was just, you know, like that team obviously was very close. We were all so young. My God, you look at us now, like you looked at, you know, Z, Berkey, Creech, myself, Marshy, Seg still plays. How many of us played or still were playing up until 3 years ago? It was insane. But we were so young, but like we had so much fun because like we knew going into the rink that we could do we could play any way we wanted. And I think that was back to your last question. I think that's why it allowed me to play so free that year, was because I remember Sean Thornton looking at me we were playing Philly. He was like, I think it was Scott Hartnell said something to me off the draw. And he looked at him and was like, you can't fucking talk to him. He's like, if you talk to him, you talk to me. And that's when I sat there and I'm like, I can play as free as I fucking want because nobody's going to do a goddamn thing. I mean, and honestly, like that was, and it was, you know what, it was great because I played with Thordy for 5 years, and he treated me like a little brother. would motherfuck me until he's blue in the face a lot of the
Yeah.
time, but he would, he treated me so well. He still does, and I mean that team was incredible.
Yeah, absolutely iconic. I mean, obviously win the cup. Um, I think the iconic bar tab, 156,679.74. I mean, how much of that was you, and how much was that
Well,
Marshy? There was the rest Marshy and Sagan.
well, let's everything that gets kind of blown out of proportion because that $100,000 bottle that Ace of Spades champagne was
Yeah.
comped to us, but it looks really cool, right?
Right. Yeah, it looks cool.
It looks awesome. I Yeah, I mean, honestly, like that night was incredible. I don't remember a lot of it, but um, I mean, you know what? Like, it's your one time that you really get to go out and you get to have fun with the
Yep.
guys. Like, I mean, I was 21 at the time. Like, you're 21
Oh
winning
my
the
god,
cup.
dude, I
Like,
can't imagine.
you're thinking you're on top of the world. And then we had to go to Fenway the next day and throw out the first pitch. And I remember we were just sitting on the bus and Marshy and I couldn't even keep our eyes open. And then we had to go in and throw out the first pitch. And I just remember just going, what the fuck is going on right now? I ended up thinking I think I took Big Poppy's jersey and ended up wearing it
Dude, like I,
during
you
the first pitch.
do you remember? So your day with the cup, did you just end up bringing it back to like Ann Arbor? Or what do you remember? What you like? What was your day with the cup?
Yeah. So I took it to Mike Barros's gym because at the time he had left Michigan. So then I took it to his gym, and then we took it back to the University of Michigan. And my sister, you know, was in and out of Mott's Children's Hospital a lot as a kid for various surgeries. So a lot of my childhood was kind of going in and out of that hospital. So we used to do this thing every Thursday. Athletes would go and kind of see the sick kids and kind of walk around and just
Yeah.
try to bring some kind of smile to their face. So
Yeah.
what we did was we did pictures at the rink, and we um, I forget the dollar amount that we charge per picture, but whatever the picture amount was, I matched it and we donated it back to Moss Children's Hospital. So we did that, um, and then we went back and we had a little get together in my hometown, like at a restaurant. Did some things outside, and then I got it the next morning and played golf with it at the country club I grew up on.
Awesome, man. I love that. I mean, I always love hearing those stories of what's done with the cup, and you hear some iconic stuff.
Yeah, like mine didn't get too crazy. We had a bunch of friends and family together, and um, had a lot of alcohol, and then woke up the next day and just continued going.
There you go, man. And 2019, you got to set you a second chance at it. I mean, another incredible year, another incredible team. You get a second go around with the Bees. You score an iconic goal, Eastern Conference Finals. I was telling you when we were messaging back and forth, my buddy and I were sitting in the crowd, actually sitting right behind Carolina's goalie. And before the game, we had a couple cold pops, and we're like, who's scoring the first goal? My buddy is all waffled, and he's like, Kampfer scoring first. And we're just going, we're like, okay, dude, like, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
man, that like to this day, like we still talk about it. Like, what do you remember from that goal? I mean, you essentially set the tone for that series.
Well, so it was actually funny because going, Charlie had obviously got suspended
Yep.
for the hit,
Yep.
and Johnny Moore and I were kind of the odd man out. And like we're really good friends, so it was really weird because like both of us were like we want to play, but we want the other guy to play, but
Right.
like we were like we want to kind of be in that moment. And I remember I think it was the day before it was we were doing power play stuff, and the only time I really knew if I was playing is if I was on the power play. like because we didn't never really had like lineups up for practice. We just kind of had them
Right.
for games. Like if I somehow was in like practice power play, I was like, all right, well, I'm playing tomorrow.
Yeah.
I was in the like I was on the power play, and I was just like, I like kind of like looked at Butchie, and I'm just like, did I just hear you correctly? And he's like, are you gonna fucking go or what? And then that's kind of when it sank in that I was playing. And it was actually I give a ton of credit to we had an optional skate that morning, and I obviously you're nervous, right?
Right.
You got a bunch of pent up energy because it's the Eastern Conference Finals. I was like, okay, so I went out and I was actually so I had a deal with CCM. And I feel really bad saying this, but I had a deal with CCM, and I'm out there with Johnny Moore. I warmed up Tuca like I did every day. Like that was our thing, was I would warm up Tuca regardless of the game. Like I would get on the ice and shoot pucks on him. And I had a Warrior stick, and I'm just snapping the puck. And I'm just like, oh my God, this feels really good. And Kim Brandvolt was our skills coach. He's the assistant coach at BU now. Comes up to me and he goes, "You're using that tonight, right?" And I'm like, "Should I?" He goes, "Yeah." He's like, "That's cool that you're playing with that stick tonight." And I was like, I
No
don't know. I'm
way.
like, Kimmer, I don't know how I feel about that. He goes, "Use this stick tonight." So he takes it out of my hands, goes and puts it in the lock, goes and puts it on the bench. And he goes, "Don't touch it, just leave it." And then obviously my first shift of the game, I just remember the puck kind of getting popped out and JoJo taking off after it.
Yeah.
And I remember taking a shoulder check and seeing that nobody was behind me. And I'm like, holy shit. Like I'm going to get a breakaway here. And JoJo slides it through the D-man's legs, Folk's legs, right to me. And I'm walking down Broadway and I'm going, and I remember Danton Heinen standing in front of the net. And my first reaction was, I'm going to fucking hit him. Like I'm going to hit him with the puck. And then I'm like, and then I'm also thinking like, well, I might just slide this back door for him to tap it in. And then I just like in the like split second, I was just like fuck it. Because I was like, at that time, I was like, fuck it. You're never getting a chance like this again. You might as well just shoot it. And yeah. And then I blacked out after that, like the celly, I blacked out. And I just remember Matt Grizzly.
Unreal celly.
He was like, Matt Grizzly was like, what the fuck just happened? And I'm like, I don't know. And we got
with
back
conviction
on the bench
too. Like
yeah,
that shot, man. Like you knew where you were putting that.
Oh yeah, I will always shoot low blocker. Like for whatever reason, like ever since I was a kid, like that was my favorite spot to shoot. And sorry, goalies, I love high glove. But I will always like I remember going back to the bench, and Kevin Dean was our D coach at the time, and he sits there and he's like patting me on the back, and I just looked at him and I just go, what the fuck just happened?
I mean, man.
And he just started laughing.
I'm telling you, awesome. That goal was iconic. Like, I'm telling you, man, like we got so after that, man, we were going bananas. Like and obviously this was like well before like we weren't using like DraftKings or whatever. And we look back on it now, we're like, dude, can you imagine like if you would have actually been able to like unreal. And like I just went back and watched it, man, and it like literally took me back. Like I remember you jumping into the boards. There's a body in the crowd that literally is just like flying across if you go back and watch the video.
So it's actually funny because Kevin Dean, the D coach, sent it to me that night, and he goes, I don't know if you've seen this video, but it's like the overhead of the guy falling. He goes, we haven't left the rink yet, and the coaches can't stop laughing.
I was like,
but I just remember sitting there, I'm just like, what the fuck happened?
You just see a dude like fly across. I'm like, what is this? Oh my God. It was, I had
he went to like, it looked like he went to like jump up on the glass and missed it.
I think that's what it was because, but honestly, the way that it was like the overhead of it was literally looked like he was just flying across, and obviously they like snapped away from it because like I don't know if that dude was hurt or anything. Like probably well worth it. But man, that goal
Yeah.
was fucking iconic.
Well, he made NBC commercials for the next 2 years.
Yeah, dude. Oh my
So
god, I love
he's
that
a
play.
celebrity.
But man, obviously, I mentioned earlier, you've been to various cities, all over the country. The one that really stuck out to me was that you spent time in the KHL with, I know I'm gonna fucking butcher this,
Akbar's
Akbar's
Kazan.
Kazan. Yeah, and I had to like read that a couple times. I'm like, all right, I gotta like say this nice and slow so I'm not, But
Yeah.
what was it like playing in Russia, man? Like, how much of a culture shock? Like, obviously, you put up great numbers over there. I was looking on, your statistics. You put up great numbers. Like, what was it like just moving over there? The way of life, playing in that league. Like, what was it like?
So what a lot of people don't know is, so my last year with the Bruins, um, I had tore 2 ligaments in my hand or my wrist, that I was shut down for. Um, I shut down for playoffs, everything like that, and I couldn't even pick up. I couldn't pick up a anything over 3 pounds in my left hand for 3 months,
Wow.
just due to the ligaments that were torn. And I remember it was July 1st rolls around, and we were sitting there, and you're just kind of waiting for offers to come in, and um, we had a couple offers, couple two-way offers, just because of injuries and stuff like that, and we
Yeah.
just come off the pandemic year, um, and I was just like, man, do I really? And I just remember sitting there talking to my agent, going, do I really want to go back and play in the minors or anything like that? And my agent, Sean Hunwick, I played college hockey with him. His brother's Matt,
Yep.
really good friend of mine,
He was a
and
goalie, right?
he
Was
just
he a
called me.
goalie?
Yeah, he's a goalie. Yeah,
Yeah, he was a
he's
goalie.
a goalie. Played one game in Columbus.
Yeah.
Um, he just called me and was very blunt, and which is I love about our friendship, because we kind of just say it how it is. He's like, listen, he's like, I think you got to do it. He goes, I know you don't want to do it. I know you're kind of skeptical of it. He's like, because at the time it was always, if you go over, you're never coming back.
Right.
And I was like, am I ready to be done? Am I ready to be done with the NHL? And I was just like, and he goes, listen, he's like, go over for a year, sign for a year, reinvent your game, see if you can get back to what you were doing. And then he's like, we'll take it from there. We'll kind of see where it goes. So I go, okay. And, Akbar's was very patient with me. Obviously they had contacted him numerous times, excuse me, throughout the year about their interest. And I had just kind of never given it 2 cents or never given it two thoughts. And then finally it started to become a reality that it was going to kind of happen. Obviously I had, my wife and son, who was 2 at the time. You're asking them to kind of move across the world. You got to talk to your family about it. You got to talk to her family about it, because
Yeah.
it's hard. You're moving you're moving to Russia.
Yeah.
Um, and honestly, it's really bad to say. I skated 4 times before I went to Russia because of my wrist. I had
Yeah.
skated 3 times with no pucks. 3 times, like Anthony Perticaro skated me 4 times. 3 times without pucks. 1 time I could pass a puck, and then I had to go over to Russia because their training camp was so long. So I got
Yeah.
over there, and so I signed July 4th. Actually, it was funny. I signed July 4th, and we were sitting at my father-in-law's lake cabin in Eastern Washington. And I remember, like, we're sitting there, we're having a cup of coffee, and I'm signing the paperwork, and my father-in-law looks at it and he goes, "What the fuck is that?" And I go, "Remember that conversation we had last night?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "That's the contract." He goes, "What does it say?" I go, "I got no idea,"
We're just
because it
hoping
was
for the
all in
best.
Russian. Yeah. So I got over there first part of August. I was really lucky. Par Lindholm, who had played in Boston, was there
Yep.
as well, um, and Jordan Wheel.
Yep.
Were both over there, and I knew both of them, so it was nice for me to kind of go over and have them um, to kind of rely on, talk to, and then yeah, we just our coach Dmitry Karplanov, he played in Boston.
Yep.
He knew English. So we kind of had that connection, and he and I from the day I got there, and Marat Ulivian, the GM, he was great. Didn't speak a lick English, but he would text me quite a bit, and we kind of translate it back and forth. They had so much patience with me of coming back from this injury, that I didn't end up playing until uh, like 2 weeks before the season started, because they have like 15, 20 exhibition games. Like your whole month of August, you're playing like pretty much a game, like a game every other day. And they had so much patience with me. And then finally it got to the point where like it was like that day was 12 weeks of like that I was cleared. And I just remember we were in Magnitogorsk, and it was that day, and all of a sudden I get a text from our GM goes, "You're playing today." And I go, "I haven't skated. I hadn't practiced with the team. I had just done like skating drills." And he goes, "You're playing today." And I'm like, "Playing today?" I'm like, "Shit, playing." I'm like, "I haven't practiced. I haven't shot a
Yeah.
puck." And we were in Magnitogorsk, and I go out there. My first game, I played 27 minutes. And
Holy
I just
shit.
remember like there's a couple times I was like real tentative on like shooting pucks, real tentative on things. And after the game, our coach comes up to me and like we go back to the hotel, and he's kind of talking to me. He's like, "Hey, like listen, like it wasn't because to play today." He's like the sponsors of the team, which is like the people who own it,
Yeah.
were getting frustrated that you weren't playing. So they were very patient with me of everything. And then after that, like I kind of hit lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
You know, they really just let me play how I wanted to. Um, they had systems, but like I kind of got back to how I was playing my first year pro. Like I just kind of skate, knew that I could get back. We had kind of that. You had half the league was NHL ice, half the league was like the hybrid ice, like the Finnish ice style, where it was like
Yeah.
a little bit wider, a little bit longer. Um, but the hockey was arguably some of the most fun I've ever had, just because the guys treated us so well. And it's crazy because like you listen to people talk about Russia, and they say that they didn't like it, or the the people were rude or whatever. Like I just kind of took it for like that's just their culture. I never took
Right.
anything that they said personally. I never took anything that they did personally. I kind of went with the flows. But I was very lucky that my defense partner Christian Henkel spoke English. We had Alex Burmistrov spoke English. Our coach
Yep.
spoke English. I had 5 or 6 guys on the team that spoke English. And honestly, the drunker that they got, the more English they spoke. So it was one of those things where I had these guys around that were helping us. They were doing everything they could to help us, to make us enjoy the experience. And the quality of life, yes, it's a little different. Like, but honestly, the food was great. The people were awesome. The organization was fantastic. They treated us like we were royalty over there. And I can't say a bad thing about that place. Like, I mean, for Christ's sake, I don't even know if it was, if you knew this, like I had signed 11 points in 8 games, and they offered me a 2-year extension. And I was like, I remember
I
calling my
didn't know
agent.
that.
There ain't a fucking chance in hell I'm coming back. I'm like, I'm staying. Like, this place is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And we signed it. And I like I said, I love the hockey. I love the people. Um, had it not been for obviously the war, arguably would have still been
Yeah.
there. Would have probably played another couple of years. Um, and you know what? I still talk to a lot of the guys to this day. I still talk to the GM. I message them, say hope you're
Yeah.
doing well. I still follow the team. Um, our we had a driver over there that took care of us, took care of my family. They would drive us to and from the practice, go pick up food for us, take us to the grocery store, everything like that. Like I still message him once a month, just seeing how he's doing. Um, it was lifelong friends that you made in
Yeah.
8 9 months because of how well they treated us.
That's amazing to hear because, like, again, you kind of mentioned it and kind of touched on it. Is like a lot of these stories that you hear from like other dudes that hop on podcasts and whatnot. They kind of have these like fucking horror stories, right, about their time in Russia. And like, the big one was like the chicklets talking about like the Russian gas and all that. Like, is that like really a thing over there?
It is, but our team was very by the book.
Yeah.
Like because so our team was we are owned by Tatneft Oil, which is I believe the third largest oil company in the world, which doesn't do
Okay.
really like they were the one company that didn't get sanctioned during the whole war.
Okay.
And so like a lot of it's like obviously they do clean business, like they're
Yeah.
well known. But no, it's funny because I remember I was sicker than a dog. We'd flew all the way out to Vladivostok and it was a 13-hour flight from Kazan. I remember I was sicker than a dog playing a game. And I remember asking for it, and their trainers are called doctors. The doctor was
Yeah.
like, "No, we don't do that," and I'm like, "Give me something." And I remember he gave me and this was like roughly 3 weeks before the Olympics, so like you're really questioning what can and can't go in your body.
Yeah.
And they gave me a TUE for like basically adrenaline to get through the game. Like they basically gave me a shot of adrenaline to get through the game because then we had 4 days off, one of which was flying the entire day.
Yeah.
I slept like to this day. Like we still have our group chat going for the guys. They laugh about it. I think the 13 hours on that flight, I think I slept 11 because
And you
I
woke
was
up and you woke up fine?
no, I was sicker than a
Oh,
dog
you're
for like
still
a week
sick at
and
that
a half.
point.
I didn't go
Oh, fuck.
like they went and played like ska in somewhere else, and I stayed back in Kazan and didn't skate,
Oh,
didn't do
Jesus
anything
Christ.
for like a week.
That's unreal. That's
Yeah,
fucking crazy. But you got through that game at least with that adrenaline, right? So,
I got through the game, and I don't know how it happened. I remember getting on I remember they have like long benches there because like the coaches are somewhat known for like standing in front sometimes, so they have like long wide
they
benches.
stand in front of the players?
Certain teams do, ours didn't, but like
Okay.
there's certain teams that did. And it was like the old like Russian 1980s, like the coach would stand down like in front of the
Yeah.
players kind of thing. Like there was a couple teams that did that. Um, I remember we were playing in Vladivostok, and I got back, and after I think it was like my third shift, and I think we were tied like 1-1. I just remember getting on the bench, and I just put my feet up on the bench, and our D coach is like yelling at me, and I just go like this. Like we dressed 7D at the time, and I was just like this. It's just
Like he'll
like
get
go
over it.
somebody else go like I
Yeah.
like
Sounds like a lot of
and
dudes in beer league.
yeah yeah
Man,
but it was it,
you had brought up earlier the Olympics, and I think to me like that was the biggest thing I admire, right? Is like obviously you're iconic in Boston, man, like with that Stanley Cup run, that goal in 2019 we mentioned, but honestly the thing that's most admiring to me is, you got the opportunity to represent your country in the Olympics, and I just think especially with the way the game is now, not a lot of guys get that opportunity. Can you kind of speak to what that experience was like, being able to put on that sweater, just what it meant to you?
um I gotta say, it was very shocking, obviously, to get the call. I think that's what started the point of where I got sick, because
Yeah.
I got the phone call from John Van Beesbrook, and we were John Van Beesbrook called me. We were in Amur, and his time was 9 a.m. Our time was 3 a.m. We were a full day ahead, basically. We were
Yeah.
like 20 something hours ahead, because we were on the
Wow.
farthest point of the world.
Yeah.
And I'm not blaming it, because I would have picked up that phone call any day.
Yeah.
And but to get that phone call was obviously, like, I remember we were on a flight, and obviously, like, your self service there is like you're flying. You
Yeah.
don't really have internet on planes. And I land. I remember this. I'll never forget this. I land, and I turn on my phone, and I had my U.S. phone. I had my Russian phone. I had like a Russian little like Wi-Fi adapter that could connect my U.S. phone.
Right.
And I all of a sudden I have like 40 text messages from my agent Sean going, "Where are you? Pick up your phone. You need to answer this." Like,
Yeah.
and then Tara, I text her, and she was already back in the States, because like we had gone on like a month road trip in January. And she picks up or like I send her a text like, "Hey, landed," and she goes, "You need to call Sean now." And I'm like, "Who died?" She goes, "Just
Right.
call him." And I call him, and he's like, "Hey, I'm sending you a number right now. It's John Van Beesbrook. You need to call him right now." So I call John, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to go to the Olympics?" And I was just like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, you've been chosen for the team." And I was just like, my mouth. I was on the plane,
Yeah.
and like I'm sitting in, like, Jason Demers is sitting in front of me, Mark Barberio, Eric Fair, Jordan Wheel, Par
Yeah.
Lindholm. They're all sitting right there, and my mouth just drops, and they're like, "Are you going?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And like the whole plane just
Unreal.
erupted. That I like, because I was like the
Unreal.
first one on the team that found out. So the whole plane erupted. I'm on the phone with John talking to him, and yeah, it was, obviously it was incredible. And then obviously we came back to the States. We did like our little mini camp back in LA. Um, and honestly, I mean, the way that team was assembled was unbelievable. I hate the tournament format. Like, we should
Yeah.
never, like, you should never go to a shootout in those situations.
100% agree.
Um, but you know what? It was so cool, obviously, to wear the American sweater, to go to the Olympics. We were obviously in Beijing. It was a little bit different times there, where like family and friends weren't allowed to come, but
Yeah.
it was still the Olympics. It was still, you're the best athletes in the world. You're going to the opening closing ceremonies with these iconic Olympic athletes in other sports that you would never get a chance to meet. You would never
Right.
get a chance to see. And that was the part that was really cool. That team that we had, obviously the players we had on that team, a lot of those guys, it's no different than, what we talked about earlier, is like, you look at Brock Faber's rookie year, like
Yeah.
I could have told you that 2 years ago.
Right.
Matty Bernier's like the same thing, or Brendan Brisson, Sean Farrell, Nick Aberzizi. These
Yep.
kids they were all studs then, and they're going to be better players now. So it was honestly, it was so cool to be a part of. It was amazing to represent your country. It was amazing to hear the national anthem after you won games. Um, Obviously, it's an experience that you'll never forget. And we were so fortunate that when we were there, we got the full Olympic experience, I guess. We got to be there for opening ceremonies. We got to be there for closing ceremonies. We were there through it all. We got to go to different sporting events. The only one that we didn't ever get a chance to go to that we wanted to was bobsledding, just because it was a 2-hour train ride up the mountain, and like it
Yeah.
was technically not COVID safe. But you know what? We obviously got to hang out with the women's team. We got to hang out with other athletes that were in our village, curling and the figure skaters and speed skaters. And, it was awesome. And, obviously, we fell short of our goal, but we had fun. We had a lot of fun before and after that. It was a really close group, and obviously it sucked that the game ended the way it did. I think had it continued to play in overtime, we would have won. But hindsight's 2020, right? You can't really
Right.
go back and take that. So, but it was obviously a once in a lifetime experience for a guy like me. To be able to do it at 33 years old was incredible.
Yeah, it's awesome to hear, man. Were there any athletes that you kind of saw there in other sports? Not that you got like starstruck or anything, but you were like, holy fuck, like that's so and so. Like, were there any other didn't have to be any other different sport?
Who was there was a unbelievable, I forget his name. I have 45 pictures with him. The figure skater, the men's figure skater.
Oh, it's escaping me right now.
But so I have a bunch of photos with him. I have pictures of this guy when he was shit faced in our like area, because like we almost get kicked out of the village because we were drinking.
Now I want to look it up.
And then Matty Ice, that was a cool one. Matty Ice is the curler.
This guy was American, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hold on. Nathan Chen?
Yes. Yep. And then Matty Ice, the curler.
Yep.
Matty Ice was actually awesome because I think it was Justin Abdicator made a comment. He's like, dude, I keep trying to meet this guy. And I think it was when we played Canada in the preliminary rounds, like that arena was jammed with every athlete. Like that place was loaded.
That's unreal.
And after the game, like I remember like there was like 4 of us that we looked in our DMs, and Matty Ice is like in our DMs, like sick fucking win, boys. Like we're like, holy shit, like we're like, this is a fucking man. Yeah. So then when we lost, curling like semifinals was going on or something. And it was like the 2 days after or whatever. So like because like the younger guys flew back to go play in college, the older guys stayed because like you have to have X amount of players for like each sport at opening and closing ceremonies. So we stay, we go to the village and or we go to the curling, and we're sitting there. And every time this guy would do something, we'd stand up, not knowing that this had to be like dead silent.
Yeah.
We stand up and just start like, oh, Matty Ice, like celebrating. He finally looks up at us, sees that it's us, and he's like pointing at us. And then that night it was actually really funny. We Nathan Krejci was, or David Krejci was there.
Yep.
And so Krejci and I met up, and they had a bunch of beer in their house or their like apartment building or whatever. So he ended up giving me a couple cases of beer, so I took them back. And next thing I know is Matty Ice comes walking into our room, and I'm like, holy shit.
What is happening?
Yeah. So then he's sitting there and he's like, I think they were done at that point. And he's having beers with us sitting on the couch. Next thing I know is like, we look up and we have a full blown party going on.
Unreal.
Yeah. It was awesome. It was a great time.
That's unreal, man. Like I said, that's one of the biggest things, like being able to participate in the Olympics. Like not a whole hell of a lot of guys get to do it. And I'm hoping it's something that comes back, like really comes back.
Well, they should let the best players in the world play.
Yeah, I 100% agree. But man, yeah, that kind of wraps up everything. I did want to take the end of this, end of the pod to really thank you and Tara for everything you did for, not only, us, me, Maddie's family, Maddie. I mean, that kid talks so highly of you and he always brings up like, man, Stephen Kampfer, like, followed me on whatever. And like, all of us are forever grateful for what you and your wife did, to help us. And again, man, like, we're forever grateful for you guys. We're forever fans of yours. So yeah, we cannot thank you enough.
No, absolutely. It's our pleasure. I mean, like you said, when you guys reached out, it was a no-brainer for us. And um, anything we could have done to help, it's like I said, the least that we could do, and we're glad that we can help and do anything that we can.
Yeah, man. Honestly, and also thank you again for taking the time. I know you got little ones at home readjusting, to life in Florida, sunny Florida. So
No, it's
again,
perfect. I
man,
didn't have to do bedtime. That's great. That's what
there
we
you
need.
go. But man, thank you so much. Hopefully we can stay in touch. I'd love to go catch a game of yours. I know I'm still here in Boston, but like I said, man, I've been a fan of yours since 2011. So it's pretty surreal for me to be able to talk hockey with you. And can't thank you enough.
Absolutely. You know what? We'll always be in touch. So, you got my information. We'll go from there.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too, man. Take care.